get no, man, listen. I work hard for my money. I get to the sack for real. I work for my shit. I don't know what's wrong with you. I was already retarded on my kid. You on my mama. I don't, man, listen. One thing about it and two things for sure. Any woman I deal with know what's up with me on my kids. I don't come to play. I come to slay. Play that other shit. What's that other shit? Let me see. Hey, Daddy, what's up, gang? Pop your shit, gang. Come on, I got some studio.
It's one of the most unsettling questions you can ever ask yourself. How does a father go to sleep at his own home and never wake up, only for police to later say the person responsible may have been his own child? This is a case of Jonathan Brown, a 34-year-old father whose life ended inside his North St. Louis County home, and the shocking allegation that his 15-year-old son is the one who pulled the trigger. Before we go any further, if you care about real stories, real victims, and the uncomfortable truths behind family violence, take a second to like this video, subscribe to Shadow Crime, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what happens next. These cases don't get justice when people stop paying attention. Jonathan Brown wasn't a stranger found in an alley or someone caught up in street violence. He was a father, reportedly raising multiple children, living a life that looked normal on the outside. Friends and people online described him as someone who had responsibilities, someone who mattered to people who depended on him. On January 7th, 2026, police were called to a home in Glasgow village after reports of a suspicious death. Inside the house, officers found Jonathan Brown with a fatal gunshot wound. He was pronounced dead at the scene. At first, details were scarce. Police didn't immediately say who they were looking at, and for days there were more questions than answers. Then came the update that stopped people cold. A 15-year-old boy, Jonathan Brown's own son, had been taken into custody. Not a stranger, not a robber, his child. Investigators later confirmed the teen was charged with second-degree murder and armed criminal action and placed under the custody of family court. As people started digging for answers, rumors and reports began circulating online. Some said the shooting happened while Jonathan was asleep. Others claimed it happened just weeks after the boy's birthday, at an age where most kids are worried about school, friends, or fitting in. Law enforcement has not publicly confirmed every detail, especially because the suspect is a minor, but the weight of what is being alleged hangs heavy either way. Think about that for a moment. A home that should have been a place of safety. A father who likely had no idea that night would be his last. A teenager now facing charges that most adults never imagine, let alone a child. And still, police have not revealed a motive. No argument timeline. No clear explanation. Just the silence, and a family forever altered. Here's where the tension really sets in. When the suspect is a minor, the system goes quiet. Court records are sealed. Names are withheld. And the public is left trying to understand how something this severe could happen behind closed doors. Was there ongoing conflict? Was there fear? Was there something no one saw coming or something everyone missed? And maybe the most disturbing part is this. If this could happen inside a family, what does that say about the pressures kids are carrying that we don't see, or the warning signs adults might overlook? As this case continues to develop, we're left sitting with questions that don't have easy answers. What breaks inside a teenager to make violence feel like an option? How much responsibility lies with a child? And how much with the environment that raised them? And how many families are closer to tragedy than they realize? When news like this breaks, people immediately start picking sides. Some rush to defend the child because of his age. Others focus on the victim and say there is no excuse, no matter how young you are. And right there, in that split reaction, you can feel how complicated this case already is. Because this isn't just about a crime. It's about a family that collapsed in the most public and irreversible way. What we do know is that after Jonathan Brown was found dead, investigators didn't rush to media with explanations. That silence matters. In cases involving minors, especially when alleged crime happens inside the home, details are often held back for a reason. Still, the charges alone speak volumes. Second-degree murder, armed criminal action. Those are not light accusations, and they suggest prosecutors believe this was intentional, not accidental. Now pause with me for a second and think about how heavy that is for a 15-year-old, old enough to understand right from wrong, but still young enough that their brain isn't fully developed, old enough to be charged with murder, but still considered a child under the law. That tension sits at the heart of this case. It forces us to ask uncomfortable things about accountability, punishment, and whether the justice system even knows what to do in situations like this. People online have been asking about the home itself. What kind of environment was this? Was it calm, or was it filled with conflict that never made outside those walls? Police have not said. And because there's no confirmed motive, every theory floating around right now is just that, a theory. But the absence of information doesn't stop people from trying to fill in the gaps. It never does. Some are focusing on the idea that Jonathan may have been asleep when he was killed. If that turns out to be true, it adds another chilling layer. Sleep is the most vulnerable state a person can be in. It's when you trust that you're safe enough to let your guard down. Whether confirmed or not, the fact that so many people latched onto that detail shows how deeply it shakes our sense of safety inside our own homes. Others keep circling back to Jonathan himself. A 34-year-old father, reportedly with 3 children, now gone. No chance to explain his side. No opportunity to defend himself, to reconcile, or to protect his other kids from what comes next. Whatever kind of father he was, good or flawed, present or struggling, his life ended abruptly, and his absence will leave a permanent hole. And then there's the son, whose name we may never hear publicly. A teenager now living with the weight of being accused of killing his own father, removed from his home, placed into the juvenile justice system, facing consequences that will follow him for the rest of his life, no matter how the case unfolds. Even if you try to imagine it, it's hard to fully grasp what that reality looks like. This is where the story stops being just about facts and starts becoming about reflection. Because cases like this don't happen in isolation. They happen in communities, in families, in systems that sometimes fail quietly until something explodes. And every time, we're left looking back, wondering what signs were missed, what conversations didn't happen, and what support never showed up when it was needed most. As more details come out, this case will continue to test how we talk about youth violence, parental responsibility, and the thin line between being a child and being held accountable like an adult. And as we move closer to the end of this story, the questions only get heavier. As this case sits in the system, frozen in that uncomfortable space between childhood and criminal responsibility, it forces all of us to slow down and really think. Not react, not argue in comments, but think. Because behind the headlines and charges are real people who will never be the same again. A man who lost his life. Children who lost a father. A teenager whose entire future now carries this moment, no matter what the courts decide. One of the hardest parts about this story is the silence. No motive released. No vital explanation. Just fragments of information and a lot of unanswered space. And maybe that's what makes it so disturbing. Humans want reasons. We want something we can point to and say, that's why this happened. But sometimes there is no single reason. Sometimes it's layers of emotion, conflict, pressure, and pain that quietly build until something irreversible happens. Think about how many families live under the same roof, but feel miles apart emotionally. How many conversations never happen. How many warning signs get brushed off as teenage behavior or family stress. And then one day, the unthinkable becomes reality. This case forces us to confront the idea that danger doesn't always come from outside the home. Sometimes it grows within it, unseen. For Jonathan Brown, there is no second chance, no opportunity for growth or reconciliation. His story ends on that night in January, inside a house that should have been a place of rest. And for his son, life as he knew it ended too, just in a different way. Whatever the truth turns out to be, there is no outcome here that feels like a win. As viewers, as a community, we're left holding the weight of it all, trying to understand how someone so young could be accused of something so severe, trying to process how a family dynamic could collapse this completely, and trying to sit with the reality that justice, even when it's served, doesn't always bring peace. So I want you to really sit with this story, not just as true crime content, but as a reflection of real life. What happens when emotional wounds are ignored for too long? What happens when support systems fail? What happens when silence replaces communication inside families? Could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had intervened earlier? How much responsibility lies with the child, and how much with the environment that shaped him? At what point does a child stop being seen as a child in the eyes of the justice system? And how many similar stories are unfolding right now unnoticed until it's too late? If stories like this make you pause, think, and reflect, then this is exactly why shadow crime exists. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss future updates and deep dives. Stay engaged, stay aware, and most importantly, don't look away.